Bases dropped on a dreary Monday morning here in Atlanta, Georgia. Soccer down here is live for June 10th. It's an overreaction Monday, and going into this international break, I wondered if we would need to have an overreaction Monday because there's no Atlanta United match from the weekend to discuss, and you never really know what's going to happen over the weekend. Then the United States men's national team decided to give us something to react about on a Monday. Probably not many underreactions on this one. Maybe a few. Maybe some on-par reactions. Probably a few overreactions along the way as well. U.S. lose 3-0 to Venezuela and were thoroughly outclassed. Thoroughly. Just really no other way around it. It was a pretty embarrassing day in Cincinnati for the United States. We're not going to play the highlights because we value your mental health, so we're not going to do that. That would just be cruel and unusual punishment. It was bad. You know it was bad. You've seen the highlights or you watched the game by now. What did some folks have to say about it? Well, let's hear that. ESPN FC had this discussion after the match.
I don't recall seeing a 45 minutes that was so abysmal since the last time we saw this team in Trinidad and Tobago, which Bruce Arena and those men failed to qualify for what was the World Cup in Russia. It was that bad, Sebi and Ali. I don't recall seeing players ever in a U.S. men's national team jersey like that, where they were caught ball watching, lost tactically. Just the moment got to them so much where they looked inept on the field. Now, every player at some stage in their international career has a moment or two like that, but I've never seen so many collective efforts and the same just lack of creativity and willingness, and sometimes it looked like just pure heart.
Well, it's no secret that when the U.S. schedules a team like Venezuela in preparation for a Gold Cup, is in so many ways to get the spirits up.
Confidence.
To build the confidence. To get the result that is going to really spur this team forward and feel good about themselves, and we're going to work on some things, and here's how we're going to work it out, and we're going to play out of the bag, and we're going to be able to dominate the midfield, then create chances in the attack.
Not today.
Not today. Because you played against a real team, and you got housed. Now, he's talking about 45 minutes. 30 minutes, it was 3-0. And it was 3-0, every bit of 3-0. It was every bit of dominance from Venezuela. The third goal, by the way, playing out of the back by Venezuela, back and forth, 1-2s, drop-offs, runnings in behind, and then Salomon Rondon trying to be buddied up by one of these American defenders. It's not going to work. These are real players who are playing at a very high level, and guys that will test you, and guys that are preparing for Copa America, a very competitive tournament. If you think you're just going to build confidence playing against a team like Venezuela, nah, no chance.
Yeah, you can tell Alejandro Moreno's a little fired up. Here's a little more from Ale after the match.
People are going to go back to this match and say, well, it changes with Pulisic on the field. It changes with Michael Bradley in the field. And it may, and it probably will, because these are players that are impactful and game changers for this level of the U.S. men's national team. However, it doesn't make this team exponentially better to the point that you say, everything is okay. Everything else is fine. We're good. Nothing to see here. Because as Hercules just pointed out, the issues to me is you have now in Greg Berhalter a national team coach who, with his club team in Columbus, who he worked with on a daily basis, was able to get those patterns that he likes to put out on the field. But when you only have weeks during the year, not in the month, but weeks during the year where you can actually put those patterns to work with the national team in the short amount of time that you have those players available, then it's difficult to get that understanding. And if there is so much emphasis on we're going to push guys high and we're going to play out of the bag and we're going to put an emphasis on our center backs to be able to play with the ball, if we turn the ball over in a bad area, guess what happens? 1-0 against Venezuela. If we turn the ball over in a bad area, guess what happens? 2-0 against Venezuela. That's what happened today, and let me tell you, it could have happened against Jamaica as well.
All right. There's a lot to unpack from what ESPN FC said, what MLS Soccer said on their For Club and Country show, what everybody has had to say. What do you have to say, John? What do you think about it?
Holding my nose doesn't translate, and it's not just because I have to sneeze this morning. It's disappointing. You would have liked to have seen something resembling progress heading into Gold Cup. Jamaica, when we were over at Eventide for the Soccer in the Streets kickoff, they looked just kind of there. And against Venezuela, they didn't even look like they were there. And when Zach Steffen is trying to force something that creates a quick turnover and a goal, when you allow a goal off a throw-in, this to me is just, I'm not going to use the word mind-boggling, but I'm just going to say disappointing and use that as my baseline. And I think that it emphasizes the importance of starting Josie Altidore, having Michael Bradley, hoping that when you have Tyler Adams and Christian Pulisic that things are better. But the point that Moreno made about only having a certain amount of time to do certain things, and it looks like Greg Berhalter is trying to do too much in the time that he has with this group. I'm seeing a bunch of red flags here right now, and I'm hoping that when everybody's in the roster that he has set, that things will be better. But right now I'm Missouri, and you got to show me. You sit there and, you're booed off at halftime in a friendly in Cincinnati in front of 23,000. And I've got more flares right now than I do anticipation for the Gold Cup.
Yeah, there's some issues. We talked about it when Berhalter became the top candidate and the obvious choice here, that his system, and man, it feels like it's a capital T, a capital S. There's quotes around it, and it's probably in italics. The system, it feels like, is the big conversation. Tell me a national team that has the system. Give me one. Ever.
I'd love to be
Ever.
I'd love to be able to do that.
And don't give me Total Football, because it wasn't Ajax Total Football when the Dutch played that. It was a simplified version of it because you didn't have all Ajax players, although you had maybe half. Barcelona didn't take that system to Spain when the Spanish national team was playing a similar version to what Barcelona did, because you had players from Real Madrid, you had players from other clubs that were mixed into that. You took a simplified version of that style because you had a base to start with. That's about it. That's about it. There's really not much else. Marcelo Bielsa and Chile would be another one that had a system of sorts. Little different situation because he was able to work with players over longer periods of time. But even then, you compare what he's done at club level, and if you want to take his Newell's Old Boys teams, or you want to take his Athletic Bilbao teams, or you want to take his Leeds United team from this year and compare it to what he did with Chile, simplified version. That's not what it's not what it feels like you're trying to get to here with the United States. And that's the scary part of it is, it's easy, I think, here in Atlanta to make the comparisons to, okay, Frank de Boer's system, it took a while for that to work. It's a different conversation. They're different systems, although there's similarities, but let's start there and compare them straight up. Frank de Boer said that you would see the best of his team in 6 months. 6 months in a club environment, even with the compressed schedule that Atlanta's had, and that's why I don't think you're seeing every bit of it as quality as you'd like to see. 6 months in a club environment is going to have generally 4 good training sessions a week, not including, regen and those types of days where you're not really getting too deep into the tactics. It's more reinforcement, if anything. 4 good training sessions a week over 6 months. Where do we want to go with that? 24 times 4. That's a lot.
Close to 100.
Yeah, around 100 sessions in 6 months. You're not going to have 100 sessions with the United States in a year and a half, if not 2 years. With your full group, you're probably going to have it in like a cycle, because that's the nature of the national team setup. You don't have players for extended periods of time. And when you're working on these things, and then you're also saying things like Greg Berhalter said after the match about, well, they're not where I want them to be fitness-wise. These sound like club issues, not national team issues. And that's a massive problem right now, because you're not going to get time to build fitness in a national team environment. You're not going to get time to build the system in a national team environment. That's not what it's there for. You have to figure out what style of play is going to be the most comfortable for my best players to play in. And once you get past your first couple, let's start from there. Your best players, who has to be on the field? Everybody's healthy right now for the United States. Who has to be on the field? Not thinking position, not worrying about any of that. Who are the first names on the team sheet, and you figure everything out from there. Christian Pulisic is one. We know that. Tyler Adams is another. I think we're good there. Weston McKennie, I think, is in that spot now. Who else is a must-play right now? I think when you do get a little bit past that first group and you do start thinking about position, I think Josie Altidore is a must-play right now, because you don't have another striker in the system, in this team, in this pool that can do what Josie Altidore does. If he's healthy, he's playing. I think it's that simple. Beyond that, okay, now you're starting to think about fit. And, okay, I want to get the best out of my best players, and now, okay, what else do I need? That's where you start working through it. And then what do? You see national teams that press, but it's not the Red Bulls pressing that is very defined and very drilled. It's not that, because it can't be. It's not the possession, the positional play of Pep Guardiola, because it can't be, because you're not doing those sessions every day for months on end. It can't be any of that. Can it have elements of it? Can it have some of the principles? Yes. Can you say, yes, we want to have the ball here. We want to not give the ball away cheaply. We want to control possession, and we want to find Christian Pulisic in 1v1 situations in the final third. Yep. You can do that, and you can do that in a simplified way without saying, all right, I want my right back to come inside here. I want this player to go out here. I want this player to go over here. You don't have time for that level of depth, and that's the part that I'm getting worried about, because it feels like lessons aren't being learned as of yet. Now, let's be fair about a couple things. I don't think there's been a game out of the 6 that Greg Berhalter's had where he's had his top A team 100% there. I don't think there's one where he's had the A team completely there, everybody healthy. Maybe the Chile game, maybe. Or maybe the first one in that pool against Ecuador before McKennie was hurt. Maybe. But that's it. So he didn't have Pulisic here. Pulisic joined the group, I believe, on Thursday, maybe Friday, coming over because he played late into the German season. All right, you should have him game 1 of the Gold Cup. You didn't have Tyler Adams. He played in the Cup final in Germany, I believe a week later than the season ended. He's joining up, if not today, tomorrow. Is he going to be available for game 1? Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. All right. So those two things are real. Those are legitimate reasons. Call them excuses if you want. They're legitimate. You didn't have that today or yesterday in this game. But you looked and this is my biggest problem with it across the board, is you can work on tactics, you can try to incorporate these principles, you can dial it down or dial it up depending on what you have and how guys are grasping it, all those things, that's fine. This team looked flat after giving up a goal. They looked flatter after giving up a second goal. They looked even flatter after giving up a third goal. And then you had a halftime where nothing changed for the better outside of Josie Altidore coming in and making the team look competent up top. Nothing changed in terms of the spirit of the group. Nothing changed in terms of the work rate of the group. Nothing really changed until Dwayne Holmes came in and threw himself into some tackles and picked up an early yellow. Walker Zimmerman came in and threw himself into some tackles and picked up an early yellow. Hey, I'll take the early yellows. It was something at least. That's my number one issue, is that tactically you can have problems, but if guys can't put their head down and say, all right, yeah, we're not getting this yet, we're not playing well, we're going to have to rely on the things that have carried us in the past, and that is hard work, and that is grinding, and that is making the opponent's life miserable, then you got to do it. You have to do those things at this level. You have to. When the U.S. was getting results, I mean, I went back through and looked at the best wins in the modern era for the United States. Probably number one was the win over Spain in the Confederations Cup semis in 2009. Spain was undefeated for like 2 or 3 years. That wasn't a game where the U.S. played pretty and dominated possession or anything like that. It was a game where they grinded out a couple of goals and grinded defensively and got the win. The 98 win over Brazil in the Gold Cup semifinals. Casey Keller stood on his head. Preki had a moment of brilliance. 1-0 win. The 2-0 win over Mexico at the World Cup, a more suitable level of competition for where the U.S. has been over the last few decades. The U.S. didn't dominate that game from a beautiful soccer standpoint. Bruce Arena pulled out a 3-5-2 that completely threw the Mexicans off, and you had a couple moments of brilliance, and then you held on, and you won 2-0, and you frustrated Mexico because you worked and you grinded. Those are the things that, honestly, I don't know when the last time we saw those things were, because it's not a recent thing. It's not just a Greg Berhalter thing. That was one of the big criticisms at the end of Jurgen Klinsmann's era. The game in Costa Rica, it looked like they went out and laid down. There were other issues along the way with the Klinsmann era of the team looking like it lost its fight. That's got to change, because if you are the best player in the world, sure, you don't have to grind quite as much. But Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo do. If you're not the best player in the world, you've got to grind even more. And we're not seeing that right now. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's the lack of leadership at the top. I don't know if that's the lack of leadership from within the group. I don't know if it's just the type of personalities that you have on the field. I don't know, but when you get punched in the mouth 3 times at home to a team that is good and improving, but a team that you should be at a very minimum level playing even with, and they come into your house and break everything and eat your food right in front of you, you got to have a reaction. There's got to be something. And there just wasn't any of that in this game. And that's the part that's really concerning, because you can get the tactics right, but if the spirit's not there, it's a problem. And I don't know. I don't know. That's not an easy thing to fix. That doesn't get fixed on a training ground. Not in a session where you figure out, okay, positionally, how can we avoid Zach Steffen giving the ball away in the middle of the field? Is it the central midfielders turning and facing? Is it Steffen realizing that, hey, my first option is to play to the outside, to play to the center back that's flared out? You know, you can work on that. You can correct that. It's a little bit harder to correct attitude. And that in-your-face, grinding attitude of you're not going to outwork us. Haven't seen that in a while. That's a problem. And that's something that all the tactics in the world won't necessarily cover up. And I don't know what's going to fix it. Let's hear from you guys. It's an Overreaction Monday. Let's hear what y'all thought about United States 0, Venezuela 3 yesterday from Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with some of your thoughts after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, Overreaction Monday. Yeah, I figure the Twitters are pretty quiet today. It's a Monday, not much going on. See what you can find, John. What do we have?
Well, I was going to I can hold Mike's tweet from yesterday off for a little while, considering it was yesterday. We'll start this morning with Michael Head. The USMNT crap fest continues. Think anyone in Soccer House is thinking, maybe we should have talked to that Tata guy. Geez, just when we thought it could not get worse for our national team, hashtag US men's soccer is hapless.
The process was awful, the way it was handled. It didn't feel like there was a process. It felt like they made a decision a year before they actually made the hire, and then didn't even really use that year to change anything. So it felt like stagnation, leaving Dave Sarakin to be the substitute teacher. It felt like you didn't even do what you did in terms of making the decision on Berhalter. You didn't even do that effectively, let alone interview other potential candidates, let alone have conversations with people about the job, even unofficial conversations. I believe Peter Vermes said that he hadn't been talked to since late 16 or something, or late 7. No, it would have been late 17 after Bruce Arena had stepped away, in the immediate aftermath of that. And again, there's a couple things that I think we do have to keep reminding ourselves of. You had Bruce Arena step away after the defeat in Trinidad, as he should have. Sunil Gulati did not step down as the president of U.S. Soccer. He had like another couple months to serve. He announced he was not going to stand for election. So he wasn't going to make a move on the manager at that point. You went through the election cycle, which was contentious. Carlos Cordero ends up getting elected. Then, according to Cordero and everyone at U.S. Soccer, the first priority was the World Cup bid. I don't know why there couldn't have been two separate tracks, but okay. Ernie Stewart didn't take the job officially until August 1st, and then you get Berhalter hired after that. So there were some things that slowed the process down. I think there were some legitimate things in there, but there was also some things that feel like wallpaper over a hole in the wall, and that's probably the bigger issue. And look, there's going to be more and more questions as results don't come. That's not going away. Because of the way this process was handled, anytime there's a bump in the road, you're going to get some serious questions about why wasn't Tata Martino discussed? Why wasn't he talked to? Why wasn't Peter Vermes talked to? Why wasn't Bob Bradley talked to? Maybe, although he might have hung up the phone on you. It's very possible. Why wasn't anybody else talked to? Other international names, because there were quite a few people out of jobs at that time. Why weren't these people talked to? And also, because it's going to keep coming up, Jay Berhalter in the U.S. Soccer organization and likely the next CEO of the organization when Dan Flynn steps down. That relationship is going to be talked about. It has to at this point because of the way everything has gone. And when the results aren't there, and this is what I was afraid of when everything went down the way it did, was by delaying it for as long as you did and not really doing anything to prepare the Greg Berhalter era. Okay, he's going to finish the season with Columbus. That's fine. Nothing was done, it felt like, in terms of preparing the players to play in this way, preparing the roster pool, any of that. It just felt like, all right, we're just going to play some games and pull in some random teams, and yeah, we'll play some young guys, and cool, that's it. Nothing to prepare for Berhalter. When you have this type of start and you go into a Gold Cup that now has a ton of pressure on it, and I'll say what I said at the beginning of all of it, you don't make the final of the Gold Cup's a failure. I don't care about these two results. That doesn't change that expectation. It shouldn't. The Gold Cup final should be your expectation, 100%. And if you don't get there, after these results, all of those things are going to be discussed very loudly because they have to be. That's the issue. I mean, would Tata Martino have been the perfect manager for the United States? We don't know. It's possible. It's possible it wouldn't have worked. But to not even kick the tires on it when a manager of his level and his background says, yes, I would be interested, to not even have a conversation, it's disrespectful and honestly just a little insulting. Don't waste those opportunities, and I feel like it was wasted.
What was the word? Absolutamente? When he was asked?
I believe that's what others said he said.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if there was actual video of this. Two different times, Taylor Twellman preparing for national TV broadcasts when they meet with the coaches the day before and have a conversation. Two different times, Twellman mentioned it on broadcast that he had talked to Tata Martino the day before, and Tata Martino said, yes, I would be interested in learning about this job. I would be interested in this job. And you can throw whatever speculation that he said that to try to get X, Y, or Z. I think you're reaching. He told people he was interested. And by all accounts, no one reached out and talked to him. Feels like a wasted opportunity. Feels like a wasted opportunity that there wasn't a real serious conversation with Peter Vermes. Because, look, you want to compare track records. We'll take Tata out of it for a second. Because at that point, he had not won MLS Cup. Peter Vermes had an MLS Cup to his name. Peter Vermes had a system, not the system, a system that pretty adaptable. Peter Vermes had success in the Open Cup. Peter Vermes understood the national team program, like Berhalter did. They both played for it. Peter Vermes has a personality that I don't think you would ever see a Peter Vermes team not give you 100% effort. And if Peter Vermes was not seriously talked about, and Peter still could have ended up saying no at the end of it because he has a sweet gig in Kansas City. He has complete say over everything. He might have still turned it down. But the fact that you don't have the conversation with Peter Vermes, if you're just comparing track records in MLS, well, at that stage, Peter Vermes was your guy. And you don't have a conversation with him, you're not going to have a conversation with Tata Martino or anybody else because you already made your decision. And that's the scary part because it felt like a wasted exercise of time, a wasted exercise of maybe learning about some things that you could see differently if you're the federation, and a wasted exercise in maybe figuring out that there might be a better solution there. And that's not saying Greg Berhalter's not a good manager. He did good work with Columbus. He was praised by managers all over the league. Good work, good soccer. Does that translate to the national team? So far, it doesn't. And that's something that Berhalter's going to have to sit down and look at and say, am I going to keep along this path with the system and make the players fit the system? Or am I going to realize that I'm not going to get the players to fit the system for the Gold Cup? I've got a competition in front of me right now. I've got to figure out a way to get results now. If he doesn't realize that, things are going to get really spicy in American soccer if you have bad results in this group stage against Guyana, against Trinidad and Tobago, and against Panama. That's where you're at right now. More pressure on it than there should be because of the whole process to get here and because of these two friendlies looking as bad as they did. 0 goals against Jamaica and Venezuela, and you gave up 4, and you looked like you got outplayed for the overwhelming majority of 180 minutes against two teams that should not happen against. That's a problem, no matter how you cut it. See if it gets solved.
Michael had a follow-up. He says, oh, yeah, how could I forget Berhalter as a very, very close friend in leadership of U.S. Soccer? Nice job, guys. You opened yourself up for this added scrutiny when you hired the second Berhalter as head coach. # nepotism.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go # nepotism yet, but yes, you opened yourself up for this level of scrutiny. If the results weren't going to be there, this is what was going to happen, and you had to know this is what was going to happen. You had to know that these questions were going to start to get asked. Jay Berhalter's done an amazing job with U.S. Soccer in the roles that he's been in. Never really heard any negatives about his work. As the CEO, Dan Flynn has done a great job. Dan Flynn has been primarily in charge of taking a federation that had no money to a federation that has a large reserve. And you need that. And you don't go blow that on a bunch of projects. You have to keep that large reserve because you don't know where the business is going to go. You don't know if you're going to miss a World Cup and miss that revenue. You have to have that reserve. Dan Flynn did a great job with it. By all accounts, Jay Berhalter would do a great job as the CEO. However, when you hire his brother as the manager and you have these types of results, you're going to get a lot of questions. There's just no way to avoid it.
The optics are always going to be there. Chris Hutchison says, thank goodness we have the @USWNT.
Hopefully, yeah. You get a couple games that they should do well in against Thailand and Chile. You get a test with Sweden, who knocked you out of the last Olympics. I'm a little worried about stagnation there, too. I'm a little worried that tactically, okay, you don't have the system like you do on the men's side, but you don't have much of any system on the women's side. And that's the whole exact opposite. And we'll see how it works out. I think there's some roster decisions that hopefully won't come back into play, but could if you have injuries, if you have suspensions. It's a very tough road for the U.S., regardless of how they're playing, regardless of concerns about things like that. You win the group, you're likely looking at a match against Spain, who looked a little shaky in game one, but Spain is one of the up-and-coming European teams. You beat them 1-0 in Spain in January. Going to have to be better than that to get through it comfortably because Spain is improved. Then you're looking at a quarterfinal with France in Paris, and that's just the way the draw is. That's just brutal. You could have a very good tournament and get knocked out in that quarterfinal by France, and it's going to look bad, but you could feel good about the performances. Or you could have a very bad tournament and get knocked out by France in that, and it looks bad, and then you get beat by a potentially better team. The draw is really difficult for the U.S. women, and we'll see if they can manage it. I just want to see them build as the tournament goes on. They have a schedule in the tournament with the easiest game in game one, next easiest in game two, next one in game three, that you should be able to build as the event goes on. And you're going to have to be ready to face France in the quarterfinals if you get there.
Bartimus Prime, someone please talk me off the ledge and tell me that putting Pulisic and Adams on this roster magically makes the other 9 players on the field capable of passing a ball to each other. # why do we suck?
Bart, I'm not going to lie to you. It'll help. You get those 2 in this team, it will help. There's no way it can't. But does it magically fix everything? No, it doesn't. There was a play in the second half where I want to say it was a set piece, and the U.S. was trying to recycle possession. It falls to Will Trapp, and he hits a rocket 5 yards away to, I believe, Paul Areola or Tim Ream, one of the two, and neither one. They couldn't. You could have had them both there, and they wouldn't have been able to trap it and hold it because it was just a poorly hit ball from 5 yards away. Little things like that, it's just, eek. It's why Michael Bradley is important in this group, and I know that upsets people, but he's a guy who should be starting for this team, and he wasn't available after playing on Wednesday, so he's a guy you're going to have to manage what you get out of him. You're going to have him in this group. The more I look at this and what this lineup's going to look like, the whole right back as a central midfield experiment, I'm really not digging it because I think you could play a simplified version of what Berhalter wants to do. Dominate possession, control games that way. You can do that in a much more simplified way. Play either Ream or Lovitz at left back, and I'd probably play Lovitz. You probably should have picked a more true left back, but Lovitz would be your guy in the group you have. Play 2 center backs. Aaron Long looked bad yesterday. He's been very good in recent years, but right now Walker Zimmerman in the group currently is playing better. Zimmerman, and it's either going to be Miazga or Gonzalez, and take your pick. People have issues with both. Miazga hasn't played well lately, so I'm not as sold on him as others. You're going to play 2 center backs. You're going to play Lovitz on the left. You play Nick Lima on the right, who's really the main true right back in this pool. You play Bradley in the holding midfield. Gwen knew I was about to start talking about Michael Bradley, and she's a huge Michael Bradley fan. Big member of the Holding Midfielders Appreciation Society. You play Bradley and Tyler Adams together because then Bradley is your deep-lying playmaker because you don't really have a playmaker, and Adams is going to do a lot of the running for him, and you're not asking Adams to control the game from a possession standpoint playing there with Bradley. You're asking Bradley to do that. You play a central midfielder in front of them, and I would probably lean to Weston McKennie. I think that's the best solution here. I would have loved to have seen Jordi Mihailovic in this group because I think he just seems like the perfect fit for the type of central midfielder that Berhalter wants, and I don't know why he's not here. Mihailovic would have been who I would have played. Okay, the group you have, probably McKennie there. Pulisic, you could play there. I think you're probably going to get more out of him out wide. But if you're going to play him there and Bradley's going to sit deep and Adams is going to run all day, maybe you could do that. I'd like to get McKennie on the field. So I'd play him there, play Pulisic out on one side, either Boyd or Areola on the other, and Altidore up top. Simplify it. You can still dominate possession with that. You're not asking somebody to play a hybrid position. You're playing the guy that you probably need on the ball the most in Michael Bradley, but you're protecting him with somebody who can run for him in Tyler Adams. You're not asking Adams to get out of his comfort zone. You're going to find the most comfortable position for Pulisic to be Christian Pulisic, and I think it's out wide. And I think you're just more stable that way. And in a competition like this, you've got to be stable first before you can be expansive and flashy and creative and super tactical and smarter than everybody. You got to be stable. And that, to me, would give you stability. Not sacrificing the philosophy of possession and embracing having the ball, but just doing it in a more stable way. I think it would make a lot of sense. We'll see if it gets simplified. My gut feeling is that it won't, because you look at it and you have Guyana in the first game, and that's a game that you should be able to win even playing this badly. But I'm not taking any chances. I would go into this tournament and keep it stable and simple and do what you need to do to put players in the best positions to help you. So, Bart, I don't think they magically fix everything, but I think they will help. They should. And we'll see if they do. Let's take a break here and come back. More Overreaction Monday thoughts after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Overreaction Monday. More takes. More spicy hot takes on the Twitters. What do we have?
Yes, we have spicy. David Benson. Not sure what to expect from Gold Cup now. I have no hope for Gold Cup and little hope moving forward. Women's World Cup's been exciting so far, but VAR needs work. ARs don't want to raise the flag for offside, now thinking let VAR sort it out.
Okay. I think we've covered everything on the men's side. Don't be completely hopeless, but yeah, there's concerns. These bad performances don't change the expectation. It's got to be the final or it's a failure. The offside thing, look, that's not a Women's World Cup deal. That's where VAR is with the game right now, because that's consistent across the board. We've talked about it with MLS all season. That's not the number one story out of the Women's World Cup. The number one story of the Women's World Cup is the handball situations that we've seen. And I think a lot of people have talked about VAR with that, and it's not VAR. It's interpretation. They've changed the way that handballs are defined. And the idea was to provide more clarity and take some of the judgment out of it. I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, because the England-Scotland one for me, by the book, it's a handball.
Yep.
And yes, you can say handball now. IFAB allowed you to say handball. They changed the terminology. You don't have to say handling. Handling is the verb. A handball is what you do. It's the noun. So it was a handball. You're not handballing. You are handling. There's been some discussion about that. So the handball that was called against Scotland in the England match that VAR did intervene in because they thought it was a clear and obvious error. By the book? Yep. Clear and obvious error. It was a handball.
Arm extended. Yeah.
Arm extended. Now, there's a couple things about the way things have been phrased now. The arm was outside the silhouette. You're going to hear silhouette a lot as you go through all this stuff. So basically what they're getting at is they don't want, and I know everybody's friend Alexi Lawless tweeted out about you're going to see defenders have to play with their arms behind their back. No. That's not what FIFA or IFAB wants. IFAB is the rules-making body, the governing body of the laws of the game. They specifically said they don't want that. They specifically said that arms by the side, all good. That's natural. That's part of the silhouette. Arms by the side should not be a handball. Arms outside of the silhouette, it's a handball. Now, Christina Uncle yesterday on the broadcast talked about also including the phrase an expected play. That's where I have an issue with it, because were the defender's arms extended outside the silhouette? Yes. So by definition, handball, you got to call it. It's a clear and obvious error. You bring it back, penalty. Was it an expected play? Can you expect that cross from 3 yards away to hit you there? That's where I have an issue with it, and that's where you get back to intent and accidental and deliberate and all these types of things that, in my opinion, they do have to be part of this decision. And I know you shared it in our, because I missed it at the time, you shared it in our group chat about Allie Wagner saying that she felt like VAR, video assistant referees, should not be involved in calling handballs.
Yeah.
I don't think you can get to that point, because if it's a clear and obvious error, if the referee doesn't see it, if they miss it, if they're screened by it, VAR has to be involved in that from time to time. But I think what she was getting at was kind of my gut feeling about this situation. It didn't feel right. I didn't feel like the defender was trying to make herself big to block the cross. I felt like she was trying to turn her body to block the cross, not with her arm, but with her body. As she's turning her body, her arm is out, yeah, and it glances off her arm. There really wasn't much of an outcry at the time. I believe it was Fran Kirby who put in the cross. She said something initially, but there wasn't a long conversation. JP and Allie are there. I don't remember them saying anything about it as it happened. It goes back to VAR, and you look at it on VAR, and you take the gut feeling out of it. Yeah, it's a handball. And that's what I felt like she was getting at. And it's hard to make that level of a conversation inside the broadcast. I think VAR has to be involved, but VAR can't judge intent. And that's where the referee, who is in charge and does make the final decision, has to use some common sense in some ways here.
And for me, honestly, in the run of play, I'm looking at that and it didn't register with me. But then you go back to VAR and you sit there and go, well, yeah, okay, that's it. So therefore, letter of the law, arm extended, handball, penalty. And, I think that you have to look at overreaching and the overreaching elements that could be there. But at the same time, you have to look at it from letter of the law. And if VAR sees something that is letter of the law, and yeah, I know you're taking human element out of it. I understand that. But I think that going back to it, honestly, for me, it was a handball. And the decision was made, even though it was made by VAR, to bring everything back to the other side of the pitch.
It's not a VAR thing when it comes to handballs. And that's the issue that, again, I think that Allie Wagner was getting at here, and they weren't able to dig really into this. It's not a VAR thing on handball anymore. There's a definition, and the idea with the revisions to the laws of the game that are now in effect, and for Major League Soccer, they're not in effect until next season. But the revisions to the laws of the game that redefine handball, that redefine goal kicks and how you can take them, you can play it inside the 18, you're good. Stuff like that, those changes have just taken effect now. This is the first tournament where we've seen them. The idea was to take the gray areas out of the decisions on was it handling, was it not handling, was it a handball, was it not a handball. But what it's done, and everybody wanted more clarity. You know, this is not a new conversation. Everybody, I mean, it was the ongoing conversation about, like, you know, well, how do we know what a handball is anymore? The idea here was to define it and make it not a gray area, it's black or it's white. I'm wondering if when we're done with this tournament, when we're done with the Gold Cup, when we're done with Copa America, if there will be a movement to say, hey, no, we want some gray area in this, because you have to have intent as part of it. You have to have a human element as part of deciding if it's a handball or not. Because by defining it this way, you're going to have a ton of handballs, and you're also going to see savvy players play the ball into an arm that is extended, because accidental or deliberate, that's out of it now. So if you see a defender who is running over and they've got their arm extended, or like you saw in the Champions League final, you see a defender who has his arm up, who's motioning, hey, cover me here, cover here, you're going to chip that ball into that hand and you're going to take the penalty. Is that what we want? I don't think it is. But that's where we are right now with this revision. I think people are going to be not so happy about calling for more clarity on the decision, on what a handball is. I think we're going to want to walk that one back by the end of the summer. We'll see.
Daniel Price with his first moments of the morning. And by the way, Daniel, it was good to meet you and the boss after the Atlanta United 2 match on Friday. So it was good to catch up with you and everybody that came by the broadcast booth after the match. Daniel wants to know if he's allowed to panic yet.
About the national team? Yeah, I mean...
Both.
Well,
both national teams.
No, there's no reason to panic about the women. Why would you be panicking about the women? They haven't even played yet. What are we panicking about?
Going by his GIF, women's national team, woman screaming, why can't you just be normal, and the men's national team screaming back.
No. You're misinterpreting the is it a GIF or is it a picture? Is it moving?
It looks like it's a picture. It's a picture, so it's a picture. It's not moving.
No, you're misinterpreting, because the women's national team is fine, and the men's national team can't be normal. I've seen that one make the rounds. So,
okay.
No, there's no panicking about the women's national team yet, and hopefully there won't be. Men's side, yeah. I mean, you get drilled 2 times in a week by teams that should not be drilling you, and you don't score any goals, and you give up 4, and you play the way that you do that is just uninspiring. Yeah, it's worthy of panic. And it's worthy of panic that these are the 2 games that you have going into a Gold Cup that I think we have to stop with this nonsense about, the Gold Cup doesn't really matter. Yes, it does. It's the CONCACAF championship. Flat out. It's the only continental championship you're playing in. Maybe one day you'll get a chance to play in a Copa America again, and if you're not winning the CONCACAF Gold Cup on a regular basis, you're not winning the Copa America ever. So you can't say it doesn't matter when it is the only continental championship that you have. Flat out, it matters. And if you go out there and you don't make the final, it's a problem. It's a big problem. So right now, they're not looking like a team that's a finalist. Flat out, they're not. We'll see if they can fix that. They've got about a week before game 1.
All right. Now, something that we need to kind of keep in our back pocket for tomorrow. The Bailey Daily has posted the numbers for the SDH Copa Especial. Yes. So we have to think about this for tomorrow as well. And it looks like you and Josh are at the top. I'm 3 points back. Jared is 4 points back. Doug is 5 points back. So I think we have to do predictions tomorrow as well for the Copa Especial, and Josh has posted those numbers.
Yeah, Atlanta United is playing tomorrow. So, yes, there will be predictions made. And the Copa Especial contest between all of us is for CONCACAF, Champions League, for Open Cup, and the Campeones Cup will be thrown into this as well. And if for some reason there's a friendly announced, that would get thrown into it as well. So it's all the non-league games that get thrown into this. So, yep, we'll have more of a true preview of Atlanta and Charleston tomorrow. We'll get you set for the Open Cup then, and we'll make our predictions. One more question before we go to break, and before we get Kelly Francis on the line for the 10 o'clock hour.
Yep, Jim Lepp. The elephant in the room is the talent on the men's national team isn't good enough. Systems are red herring. Who from the men's national team walks into the Emaeki side? Not many. Ultimate objective is World Cup.
The Mexico thing's not with the conversation, though. That's a red herring. Here's my issue. Was the talent pool better in 2002? Was the talent pool better in 1994? Was the talent pool better in 2014 or 2010? I don't think it was. You got out of the group stage of the World Cup in those events. 2002, you made it to a quarterfinal, and you played toe-to-toe with the eventual finalist, Germany. That was a year after MLS, or that was the year that MLS cut back to 10 teams. I think the talent pool thing, do they have a talent pool like Spain, like, the Netherlands, who hasn't been making tournaments either as of late, like England, like Brazil, like Argentina? No, they don't. They don't. And I don't think anybody's saying that they do. But you can be better than what you are right now, 100%. I think saying that, well, the talent's not good enough, so we can't expect anything, that's insane to me. That's insane. Look, this is what you have in front of you. You have a Gold Cup in front of you. You don't have to be Spain to win the Gold Cup. You don't have to be Spain to get to the Gold Cup final. I'm just asking them to get to the Gold Cup final right now. I'm not asking them to beat Mexico because that feels like that's a step too far at the moment. Just get to the Gold Cup final. If you think the United States does not have the talent to beat Jamaica, to beat Honduras, to beat Panama, to beat Trinidad and Tobago, if you think that they can't play with those teams, that's a much bigger issue. They can and they should, and it's unacceptable that they're not. That's step one. The World Cup is the final thing, of course. But you don't go into a Gold Cup and say, it doesn't matter, we're not good anyway. That's absurd. I disagree with that. The tactics are an issue. They're not a red herring. They're an issue. Because you're not getting the best out of the talent that you have. Forget the other part of it. You're not getting the best out of the talent that you have right now. So you can complain about the pool all you want. That's a bogus excuse, in my opinion. Right now, you're not getting the best out of the talent that you have. You should be doing better. And that needs to be addressed. Let's take a break here, and let's get Kelly Francis on the line. We'll see what she thinks about the national team from yesterday, and then we'll see what she thinks about the national team that is in France getting ready for their first game tomorrow. Hang out with us. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, SDH, June 10th, Overreaction Monday. Had a few over and under and on par reactions so far. I think we might get a few more in this segment, maybe. Kelly Francis from the Unrelegated podcast and Queens of the South joins us. How's it going, Kelly?
It's going good. Just got back from traveling this weekend. So I was fortunately, I guess now, flying during this very contentious game. I did watch a bit of it on the plane, but we were about to go into some turbulence and then get into landing. So I had to stop right before the 15th minute, I think.
Oh, you saw the good part.
I saw the good part. Yeah. So when I landed and then I'd messaged Jason and Jason's like, don't look up the hashtag. And I'm like, oh, wait, too late. I already have. Apparently it all went downhill from there. So everybody can just blame me. Just blame me.
Oh, it was bad.
Kelly needs to watch the men's national team going forward. No excuses.
No excuses, because that's honestly the reason we've been losing all of these games. It's just because I just haven't had a chance to sit down while it's going on live.
Yeah, so we've been talking tactics and rosters and stuff, and that has nothing to do with it.
Nothing. No.
So just big picture then. We don't have to get into details because we have and we will and we probably will all week. But big picture for the men's national team right now. You're going into a Gold Cup. What are your expectations of this team going into this tournament?
Well, I think you were spot on, Jason, when you said earlier that they're expected to get to a final. If they don't get to a final, there's going to be a lot of heated debate. And I mean, when you really do think about it on a national team perspective, our women are ranked first in the world. There is this expectation that our men will be just as good as our women. And it's not showing. I mean, they've never really been as good as our women, but you want and you hope for them to get better over the years, learn from the mistakes that they made in the past and progress forward. And you guys were just talking about the talent pool and, it's not being as large as, a Spain or an England or something along those lines. But I still think that there's a lot of talent here that just is not being tapped into. Like one of the conversations we've had was if you've got time and a little bit of space to try out some new players like a Miles Robinson and that regard, why would you not try to pull some of the younger youth? And in my opinion, the way I would have liked to have seen this roster forming go for the U.S. men's national team is, yeah, you've got your Pulisic's and you've got your Adams and, you've got your Bradleys, but I would have liked to have seen a mix-up a bit. There's a lot of men's national team players that are available that would have fit better in this system that Berhalter is trying to use, although I really do think it's a sort of Frank de Boer system where you need months on end with this team together to allow this to apply, and it doesn't really function as a national team system.
With that in the rearview mirror, you're not allowed to not watch for a double negative. You have to watch every national team match starting with Allianz and Guyana from this moment forward. Otherwise, we are going to continue to circle back to this. But when it comes to it's all on at the Kelly Francis on the Twitters. So if you have any kvetching to do.
No, now that I put that out there, I'm sure I'm going to have many friends of mine insist that I come over and they'll just strap me to the chair.
Yes. Well, careful now. All right. So women's national team, they're getting ready. And I know that you're trying to figure out your viewing party and viewing plans and things like that. And I'll have a question about that in a sec. But with the opening weekend, 7 matches down, what have been some of your takeaways from the first weekend of the Women's World Cup, not involving the U.S. women's national team so far?
Well, there have been some expected results and there have been some not expected results. There have been some teams which I doubted coming into this tournament, specifically one of the games yesterday, which was Brazil, with Marta being out and, Christine having to come in and take over that role as a striker. I thought Brazil might struggle a bit because they're missing one of their key pieces for so many years in the World Cup. But they absolutely blew me out of the water. I'm a huge Reggae Girls fan, so it was unfortunate to watch. But I thought that Brazil has marked themselves now as, I don't think they were ever an underdog, but definitely a team that we now need to look for as a possible front runner in this tournament. France, of course, that result was expected. You did expect England to win also, but I think I was actually really amazed as well by Scotland. They held their own, being a team in their first World Cup. It looked like they were seasoned, and that's something you really want to see from a team who's just joining the World Cup. Sorry, I am outside. It's a little loud, but I think, like I said, some results were expected. Spain, we always expected to win that game, but they did seem a bit shaky, which is interesting as they are one of the up-and-coming teams, and they are coming from a more youth perspective this go round. And then you have teams like Australia, which I expected to win that game. And Italy just hammered through and took that game at the very last moments, and deservedly so, honestly.
Yeah, Italy was really good. They've to me been the biggest surprise so far. Scotland, I think the level that Scotland showed in their first game in a World Cup was unexpected, but Italy and their performance and just how coherent and how confident they looked, that shocked me. How is the United States going to look tomorrow? We're just a little over 24 hours away. It's a match with Thailand. That's a pretty comfortable match if you're the United States going into it. But what are you looking for in the U.S. performance?
I'm looking for a comfortability with defense moving forward, playing out of the back. I'm looking for our defense to look absolutely rock solid during that match, almost like you saw with France against South Korea, where there's not really any opportunity with the opposition going forward. That's 100% what I want to see. It should be a game where they're not really tested very much, but it should allow them to get their footing, get comfortable. As we all know, the first couple of moments in a World Cup match are always somewhat shaky. The U.S. is a veteran team, so they shouldn't have really that much issue going forward. But I want to see creativity. This is, if any of the games, this is one of the games to really start to get your footing and get your ground and then get that momentum going forward. I would expect to see something like I saw with France versus South Korea, where you're looking at a 4-0 game. I really would. You need to establish dominance. You need to get your strikers working together. You need to establish momentum moving forward and really be absolutely solid on the back.
All right. So with that out there for what you're looking for, and I know that there are certain players that you probably have in your spot shadow. Who are your eyes going to be gravitating toward in this first match, just to see how they're, getting their sea legs about them, for lack of a better phrase? Who are you going to be locked in on when it comes to this first match, just to see how things are in match day one?
Well, I'm not going to lie. My eyes will always gravitate to Rapinoe. I can't help it. She's an attractive player to watch. It's almost invigorating sometimes just to see her play. Same with Tobin Heath. Those are two players that, even if I wanted to focus directly on somebody else to see, quote unquote, how they get their sea legs, I still would end up watching the movement of those players. And they're going to be key throughout this entire tournament with the creativity going forward. I think I'm looking at Sauerbrunn to see, once again, for that solid defensive line. I'm looking at Julie Ertz in the way that she navigates that midfield and takes things going forwards. I think I'm also, looking to see. I'm pretty sure the goalkeeper is a solid lock, but I'd like to see maybe throwing in Ashlyn Harris in the beginning, maybe just to get a different look. I think for the team would be interesting to see that, but I think really it's just Sauerbrunn maybe for defense. I'm looking at Mallory Pugh to see if she can link up again with Tobin Heath, sort of things like that. And then honestly, we all know that I love Alex Morgan, but the minute they pull Carly Lloyd in, I'm gonna lose my young girl giggles. I can't help it. She just makes me excited. I don't know if that made any sense, but Carly Lloyd, when she steps on the pitch, just makes me really excited.
Well, Carly Lloyd has to get a record back because Christiane's 3 goals yesterday. She became the oldest player to have a hat trick in the Women's World Cup, beating Carly Lloyd from the last World Cup in the final. So Carly Lloyd, it's a different role for her. She has been pretty clear in saying that, she doesn't want the role. I don't think she's being disruptive. I think she's being honest. She wants to start. She thinks she should start. She's going to push to start. She's not going to start unless something dramatic changes here. How important is that kind of role for the U.S.? It probably won't factor in the first 2 games, but how important is it in those knockout round matches?
Yeah, so let's talk specifically about the one knockout round that I'm thinking of in particular is, my thoughts as we get through Spain. That's going to take a lot out of the team, but then we match up against France. And then you've got this game where you're playing Alex Morgan for 60, 65 minutes, and then you get Carly Lloyd on, and she's a completely different threat. She brings energy and she brings a spark, and honestly, she is your ace in your pocket in that kind of a game where it might be close. It might be a constant battle back and forth, but if you're able to bring out somebody like Carly Lloyd, who will then have fresh legs and a very aggressive perspective on trying to win that match, that's a key role. And I know anybody who's in that position wants to play as many minutes as they can, but it's also sometimes at that point in time you have to realize how much of an ace in the pocket you are and somewhat accept the role in that regard.
Yeah, it's going to be important when you get to that. Kelly, I know you've got limited time today, and we'll have you back here in a little bit too, because day 3 of the World Cup date will be coming at you early this evening with Japan, Argentina today, Canada, Cameroon. Any storylines in those 2 you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm looking at the way Argentina plays. They've got a lot of youth coming up. They are considered an underdog in this group, which is kind of crazy when you think about it being Argentina, but they haven't had a lot of development on the women's side of soccer. They did just start after their qualification last year for the World Cup, so there's a lot of movement in the women's soccer in Argentina, which is exciting to see, but it will be it will be a point of pride, I think, for the Argentine women, not only to be playing in this tournament, but also to try and prove everybody wrong on that front. Japan has always been a dangerous team. So I'd be looking at that game to be the most interesting of the two. And then I don't know, Cameroon has the ability to sneak up and change the way the outcome of that game goes. But I think it's just going to be pretty solid on who the favorite of that one is.
Make sure you're following her, the Kelly Francis on Twitter, Unrel ATL.
Not a Kelly Francis, the Kelly Francis.
Yes.
There's none other like me, that's for sure.
We'll stipulate, definitely.
Yeah, I would co-sign. Unrel ATL, and I think you guys are doing a Queens of the South episode this week as well, right?
Yeah, I've got a lot going on this week. Yeah. So outside of doing the cup dates with you guys, me and Jess will be together tomorrow evening to not only hit on the U.S. women's national team game that played that day, but also to talk about, if not, I guess, depending on when we actually get a record, the Atlanta United Open Cup game.
Yeah, that's tomorrow night as well, 7:30 from Charleston. Kelly, thanks. Talk to you later on this afternoon.
Absolutely. Love talking to you guys. Talk to you later.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Overreaction Monday right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back, Overreaction Monday. Soccer down here, June 10th. Let's get back into that Twitter timeline of spiciness.
Okay. And Trains comes in this morning. How much clarity was gained this weekend on the national level of soccer in this country? Feel much more confident in understanding the direction and philosophy that wants to be employed, in my opinion. It's a shame it goes against the tenets on what makes the American athlete so special. Why do we strive to be a finesse country? Okay,
Trains, I know the game you're playing. It's obvious you want the U.S. to implement a Red Bull style because you talk about how it's the right style. And I don't know. Let me break it down to this level. That doesn't happen overnight either. You don't create that type of pressing system by just telling people to go press. That doesn't happen. You do it through repeated drilling of press here. This person moves here. This person moves here. The right back steps up here. The right center back slides over here. It's very refined. It is not just go chase the ball. So it's the same problem. You don't have time to implement a system in that way at a national team level. Flat out, you don't. Marcelo Bielsa's Chile did not play the same type of system that Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United does. They don't. And Marcelo Bielsa's Chile, by the way, did not win back-to-back Copa Americas. That was Jorge Sampaoli's Chile, which added more of a possession system into it. Marcelo Bielsa's Chile got to round of 16 or a quarterfinal game in the World Cup, and that was their high water mark. I know what you're trying to do. It's pretty obvious. I disagree because, one, I don't think going from a national team level of teaching the game in a way to say you don't want the ball, don't have the ball at your feet, play the ball into the other half as quickly as possible, and then go chase it. You don't get better soccer players that way. You get a bad product across the board of soccer in your country because then nobody wants to have the ball at their feet. It's even worse than you are right now because right now you do still have a lot of that in the developmental side of coaches who are afraid of mistakes and afraid of players to have the ball at their feet. That's why you don't see more Christian Pulisics. That's why you don't see players who will go and dribble at opponents. That's why you don't see players who will, as people described Clint Dempsey, try-ish because they're told not to, because they're told, no, don't make a mistake. That doesn't make you a better soccer-playing nation. I 100% disagree with this. Do you need to, at times, simplify things? Yes. Do you need to, at times, in a competition, employ a more defensive style that can incorporate pressing elements? Yes. 100%. But do you want to make your soccer playing identity as a nation that is afraid to have the ball? No. And I will, if that is what happens, I will rail against it every opportunity that I have because then you will have worse soccer players being developed than you're getting right now. It's already hard enough if you are a talented player with the ball at your feet to break through because people focus on the mistakes more than they focus on the quality play. It's already hard. I don't think you make it harder by saying we want all of our teams from top to bottom to press. I don't think you can do that at a national team level, at a national pool level, unless you're going to have all of your clubs do the same thing. And personally, I don't think that would make Major League Soccer a better league. I think you would see top-notch players decide not to come play in it, and I think it would be a huge regression for the game in this country. Can you incorporate elements? Sure. In certain games? Sure. When you're playing teams that are better than you and you're not going to have the ball? Yes. Because that's how you press. You press when you don't have the ball. If you're not going to have the ball against an Argentina, can you create some pressing elements in a couple of sessions as you're preparing for that match? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely you can. But do you want that to be your defining mechanism? No. Do you want to play Guyana in the first Gold Cup game and say, we don't want the ball, we're going to punt it long to Guyana every time, and we're going to go press them? Is that the game we want to see? I don't think it is. And by the way, the club that employs this, yes, they've won supporter shields, but they're also seeing fans not come out. So I don't think it's the game that the fans of the New York Red Bulls necessarily want to see either. And I'm not talking about the vocal ones on social media. I'm talking about the general fan who wants to see good soccer. I think that's an issue.
Jim Lepp says 2 of the 3 goals would have been ruled out if VAR was in use. Not trying to downplay how bad they were in the first 45.
I don't know which other one would have. The first one 100% would have.
Probably the third, because Berhalter said that first and third were offside.
The first one 100% was. The second one's a little bit closer, but maybe. I'd have to go back and look at it. It didn't jump out to me. That still doesn't mean you didn't get thoroughly dominated.
Yeah. But Jim says, I think the outrage wouldn't be the same if the final was 0-1.
No, it wouldn't. It should have been, but it wouldn't be because that's the nature of it. If you find one of those goals, because their goalkeeper played well, if you find a goal, then yeah, it's not going to be as bad. It still should be. You played poorly, and my issue is you played worse in the second half. Like that's the thing that's surprising to me is you had less of the ball in the second half when you need goals to get back into it and you need goals to change the narrative. you played worse. And with less spirit outside of Dwayne Holmes and Walker Zimmerman coming in strong initially, and Josie Altidore actually looking like a competent forward, you played worse in the second half. That's a huge problem when you're down 3-0.
Yes. Daniel Price, who admitted that the boss is still letting him listen to the show. This is what happens when you don't have enough liquid by you. Question from Daniel: will bringing in more individual talent really help a team that's struggling to play as a whole?
It should, just because, I think you saw it with at least the way the team attacked yesterday in the second half. Bringing in a more talented forward allowed them to be a little more dangerous in moments. But Pulisic would make this team better. Tyler Adams will make this team better. Absolutely. One, in the system, they're going to fit it better. The hybrid right back role is basically created for Tyler Adams. So, yes, it will look better with him doing it if that's the way you go. Christian Pulisic, if you play him as a 10, if you play him as a wide player, he's going to make the team better because he's your best player. So, it'll get better. Does it fix everything? No, I don't think it does.
Katie Weaver with a two-step, and we'll go one at a time here. I'll get really concerned about lack of grit if it shows in a meaningful match. Team was tentative in the final game before a tournament, not an excuse, but that was a factor.
It was, but there's a moment in it that a player that you don't normally expect to be tentative in Christian Roldan jumped out of a tackle late in that game. When you're down 3-0, you kind of forfeit the right to be tentative and worried about the Gold Cup. You got to have some pride, and you've got to lead by example. If other players see that, then it's okay to back out of tackles, and it's okay to not play hard, and that's not okay. Honestly, I've always been of the mindset that when you start to do that, that's when you really get hurt. When you start thinking about what's coming up, that's when you get hurt. When you don't play,
take the pedal up. When you take 100%. The foot off the pedal, that's when everything's. When you're not locked in 100%.
That's when you get tackled and your knee buckles or your ankle buckles because you're not going in strong. I get it. I don't think it's an okay excuse, though. And I think it's something that when you're down 3-0 and you play the way that this team did in the first half, you forfeit that right. And you have to give the fans who spent a lot of money for those tickets, you have to give them something. You have to give the people who are watching something. You have to give the supporters something. And if the only thing you can give them on the day is hard work, then you've got to give them hard work.
Then Katie says, that said, Frankie Haydick's group may not merit a big money deal, but will sacrifice their whole being on the field for the crest.
Who are the Frankie Haydicks in this group? Is that the question?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the problem. I have no idea. Christian Roldan is that to a degree, but I don't know if he's going to be on the field once you get your first group out there. Walker Zimmerman can be, but you don't really want that player to be a center back because you need them to do different things. Tyler Adams can be that to a degree. He can. Left side, if it's Ream, you're not getting that. If it's Lovitz, you're not getting that. And again, you're asking them to do different things. Bradley's not that player. He's one you want on the ball. I think McKinney can be a little bit of that. I think he has some of that in him. Beyond that, I don't know if you have it. Paul Arriola can be. I take that back. Paul Arriola can be that guy. He transmits that grit. Now, you need better quality from him in the final third because he puts himself in good positions and he just can't finish things. But Paul Arriola gives you that, okay, I see him working hard. I need to do the same.
Chris Kilroy. Hey, what's up with Nagbe not getting a look for the USMNT? Is it attitude? He's far better than Trapp. I get Berhalter biased to recruit players. The whole hiring process for the USMNT has pressurized this Gold Cup. Results have to change fast.
He's a different player than Trapp. I don't think that's the comparison. I think when you're talking about Will Trapp, the replacement's Michael Bradley, If it's not either one of them in the system, it would be, man, I don't know if there is another one, to be honest, because you need a ball-playing 6. And Nagbe, we haven't really seen him play the 6. I mean, just a little bit here and there in moments, but that would be a different role for him. Nagbe would be one of the other 2 central midfielders in the system, and he should be, because like I said, Jordi Mihailovic feels like a good fit for it. Nagbe's a more defensively minded player like that gives you two-way play, that is comfortable on the ball. He would be a perfect complement to a 6 and another more attack-minded player in that central midfield. He would, and I don't know why he's not there. I have no idea. I don't know why he or Mihailovic are not there. I like Christian Roldan a lot. I think he is a very good player. And in the system that the Sounders play, where it's more 4-2-3-1 and Roldan is paired up with somebody in the holding midfield, I thought Roldan and Osvaldo Alonso was a great pair, because Roldan's mobility allowed Alonso to sit and conserve energy and do what he does best. Roldan was able to go be just a grinder. He's not a 10, and he's being asked to do too many number 10 playmaker kind of things in this system. Mihailovic would be better at that, and that's not exactly Nagbe's role, but he would be better at that. So Roldan doesn't fit the system. Nagbe would be a better fit, but I think Mihailovic would be the best fit out of the players that have been in the pool and been in the mix. I don't know why he's not there.
Shiva, so if you would have to evaluate the USMNT now, which concerns you the most? Which are concerns that you have the most? 1, the USMNT organization as a whole. 2, the quality of the players. 3, the coaching staff, or all the above.
If I'm ranking them out of that, the organization, because of what it's gotten you to at this point, the coaching staff, because I worry that they're too rigid and not flexible enough, and I feel like a national team manager has to be more flexible than a club manager, and I feel like Berhalter is on the rigid side of a club manager in having a system that you have to fit into. And the player pool is an issue, but it's the last issue of the 3 for me, because I feel like with a better organization, if the coaching search had been handled better, expectations had been set better, and you had a more flexible manager that would adjust based off the players that are available, you'd be better off with the current player pool. And the player pool is the one thing that it's not a club team where you can go sign somebody. The player pool is the player pool, and you've got to get the best out of it if you're the manager or you're the federation. Can you do things to improve the player pool over time, over long periods of time, over generations? Yes, and you should, and you are. And I do think as a whole, as an overall whole, the American soccer player is better today than they were 10 years ago. Because you have players more in more professional environments, you have players getting better coaching at younger ages. Those things are 100% true. They're there. You still are not producing the world-class players. And other countries are also improving their player pools. And I think what's happening in CONCACAF is the effect of other countries' improvements in their player pools, it's at a faster pace than the U.S. is. So while the U.S. is better, has more quality soccer players than they used to, other countries have gotten better faster. And that's not okay. That's those little things about young players have to play games, they have to go to the right clubs, they have to be in the right environments. You have to see those correct decisions being made so you don't lose young guys that could be part of the national team. Hopefully that will continue to improve. I do want to see MLS incentivize playing young players more, not punish teams that don't, because there's not one way to do all of this. But yeah, if you're going to play homegrowns a bunch of minutes, then okay, you get something. You get extra TAM or GAM or whatever, if we're going to keep with those things, or whatever you give them something in that regard. You incentivize it. Because then clubs who can't go out and spend money on big transfers to bring in big-name players can increase their potential quality of their roster by investing locally. Your Real Salt Lakes, your Philadelphias, your clubs that your Dallases. There's a few. Your clubs that are developing young talent and then playing them. This U20 group, I do think it's the best U20 group we've ever had. And I think there's players there, more, that should be in the senior national team sooner than we've seen. Are they ready today? There might be a couple that could help you. But will they be ready faster than they've been, and will fewer fall off? I think so. But there's a lot of players in that group that they have some significant decisions to make at the club level right now. Sebastian Soto. He's got to make a decision at Hanover. He doesn't need to languish anymore. I really like what Soto brings to the table. And we talk a lot about Josh Sargent. Sebastian Soto is a player that 100% we have to keep an eye on his development up top. Paxton Pomykal. You know, has there been some overhyping of Pomykal? Maybe. But Paxton Pomykal would be a fit for the system and what he brings you as one of those two number 10s, because he can do some of the functions of an 8, but he can split the lines, and he's a good passer. Thought Pomykal had a good World Cup. Mendez, Yanez, two guys that I think are still raw but could bring something to the table. Conrad De La Fuente, I think, had a poor World Cup. He's one of the youngest players in this group. I like his potential a lot, but it's potential right now. He's 17. You got time with him. Sergino Dest on the right side feels like a better version of DeAndre Yedlin. If he breaks through in with Ajax, then you're talking about a different situation at right back, and then you might be looking at, do I want to keep with the system and have my right back tuck in, or do I want to play with a traditional right back? I think there's talent coming through. I think the level is better than it has been. It's just not as good as it could be. But I have bigger issues with the rigidity of the coaching staff in the system right now, because I haven't seen anything to show you that it's going to get more flexible to base off the players you have available. It feels like you're making players fit into the system as opposed to making the system fit the players. And I have far bigger issues with the overall organization as a whole that got you to this point.
Michael Valverde, it's good to see Michael at Eventide, says it feels like the USMNT is in the same place as Atlanta United was in March or April. Lots of possession, no scoring spark.
Yeah, but you're not getting as many training sessions to fix it. And honestly, I don't think you're getting as much possession, to be clear about it. I don't think you're getting the same types of possession. It just doesn't look as threatening. And then let's take that comparison one step further. If you were Atlanta United at that time, I know for some people it felt as hopeless as it does with the U.S., but for me, the differences and the major differences were you had a Franco Escobar who was coming back into fitness and starting to play and giving you a spark on the right side. You don't have anybody giving you a Franco Escobar kind of spark. You had an Eric Remedi in the middle of the field who would throw himself into tackles and try to give you a spark there. You don't have anything like that with this team. You had a Pity Martinez who was not hitting on all cylinders, but you knew had game-changing ability in him in a flash. You don't have any of that with this U.S. team right now. So those are the big differences for me. Is while it was somewhat similar in terms of possession, but not the final product, there were flashes and there were things that made you feel like, all right, it's coming, and they're going to get the time to train and improve and be more expansive with the way they play. With the national team, you don't have any of those players showing any of the things that Escobar and Remedi did inside of games, and you don't have a player on the level of a Pity Martinez. You know, Christian Pulisic can give you some of that. I don't think he is the savior who can save a game that is lost in a flash. I don't know if he's that player. And it's a lot to ask of him right now to be that player. I hope he can be. He might have to be. That's kind of scary. So I think there were some similarities to it, but you had some pieces in place, and honestly, you just had training sessions that you knew could make it change. You're not going to get that right now. You're going to get 4 training sessions this week. You'll get a couple more during the tournament, like maybe 1 in between each game, maybe 1 extra one as you get into the knockout rounds and the space gets a little bit wider between games, and that's about it. So you are what you are to a degree. And that's the scary part, because you're not going to have much time to really change it. That's why I think it has to be more simple. It has to be simplified to get more out of this, because the results of this tournament 100% matter. And to say that it's going to get better by playing these games and having 7, 8, 9 training sessions to work on the system and playing these games, that you're going to be in like so much better shape than if you actually get to the final of the tournament, I disagree. I think you got to get some results to go along with it. So you got to sacrifice some elements of the system, some of the rigidness. You've got to sacrifice some of that to get results and to get where this team should be, and that's a Gold Cup final. If they don't get there, it feels like the whole thing is a failure at this point. And then you're going into CONCACAF Nations League, and you're going to get Cuba and Canada, games you should be able to handle, but Canada's not a pushover anymore. So I don't know. I think you gotta simplify it, and you don't have as many training sessions to see the improvement that we saw with Atlanta United. So I don't know how it improves without simplifying things. It's going to be an interesting summer on the U.S. men's national team front. Let's take a quick break, come back, more Overreaction Monday after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Overreaction Monday, June 10th. What else do we have on the Overreaction Monday timeline? I have a feeling there's more.
Yeah, we got a couple from Inigo Montoya, some from Katie, and one about Friday night. Inigo Montoya. Inigo Montoya. I once sent an email to the University of Tennessee Athletic Department, my beloved Vols, that said, "Congrats, you've run the program so well this century that you've made this hillbilly a soccer fan," end quote. U.S. Soccer is turning this hillbilly into some Euro snob who cares about club, not country.
Yeah, that's something that's been really interesting over these last few years of, I think it would have happened more anyway, just as our clubs become more prevalent in the United States and build those relationships. That's why in England, for example, I think everybody gets angry when international break comes around. Here, for so long, the national team was the focal point of soccer in the United States. It was the business. It was everything. Now, and I think this last World Cup cycle showed it. You know, in 2010, let's go back to 2006. Okay, let's go back there, because the qualifying for the World Cup, you've had the Hex since 94, if I'm not mistaken. I think you had a Hex in 1994. You did in 1998, and that was the first time the U.S. was in it, because they didn't have to qualify in 94. So 98 qualified pretty comfortably, I think, with a couple games in hand. You're good. Not really any worries. At that time, you were 2 years into MLS. I think if they hadn't qualified, it would have been a huge shock to the system, because you just hosted. You'd been to back-to-back. You were trying to get a professional league off the ground. You had to qualify. You did. 2002, it was actually a pretty bumpy road in qualifying, but you did qualify, I think, with a game to spare, with a good result in that one, and then you got some help on the day that got you in late 2001. That was critical, and that World Cup was critical to the growth of soccer in the United States, because that was the year that you got rid of the Tampa Bay Mutiny, they got rid of the Miami Fusion, and people were wondering if MLS was going to survive. 2006, qualifying final round is 2005. You've just added Real Salt Lake. You've just added Chivas USA, but still, hey, where's MLS going? Is it a thing? Is it going to be, important here? You were coming off of the success of 2002, where you got to a quarterfinal. The national team was driving the conversation. And I remember, how excited people were to watch these games, and the brew house was packed, and then the U.S., kind of stunk in the tournament, but you qualified. You got there. It was important you were there. 2010, you're further along, but you still have to qualify because the World Cup's so important. Same in 2014, although by that point, I think if you didn't qualify, it would not have been catastrophic. 2018, you didn't qualify, and it wasn't catastrophic. I don't think it changed the business of soccer in the United States in any real demonstrable way, except for the Federation not making as much money. It didn't change anything at the club level, because you're seeing growth across the board at the club level. You're at a point now where the national team does not drive the soccer conversation in the United States, and that's changed over the last 10 years. There's good and bad from that. I mean, the national team, when it's good, can galvanize things in a lot of ways, can bring people together. It's exciting. But it's not the driver of soccer in this country anymore, and it's never going to be again. Because the clubs are growing, more successful clubs, the competition at the league is better, and people right now care more about their club because there's a reason to. When the national team is good, and if they qualify for 2022 and they go in with some promise and things feel good about it, people will get excited and jump back on the bandwagon, just like we saw with England this past time around. That'll happen. But if they're bad, it doesn't mean soccer in the United States is going to fail. 10 years ago, a few cycles ago, well, maybe it did mean that. So it's just different now. I mean, I don't have the same buzz for national team games like I used to. And it's not just because of the results. It's because, man, I mean, Atlanta United is time-consuming. Like, there's games all the time, and there's transfer sagas, and there's all kinds of storylines. You can opt out of the national team if you want to. You don't have to be invested in it and be invested in soccer in the United States anymore. Before you did. Now, if it's not the kind of soccer you want to see, don't watch. And come back on board when they're having a good tournament, when they're making a run, and cool. You're welcome. But you don't have to live and die with it anymore. You did before if you were involved in soccer in the United States.
And the follow-up To be clear, making me not care about a beloved sports team requires sustained incompetence over many years. Unfortunately, I believe that, quote, sustained incompetence over many years, end quote, is U.S. soccer's mission statement or internal slogan at least.
On the men's national team, it is. I mean, it's not, but it feels that way. On the women's national team, it's not. On the youth national teams, it's not. On the men's senior team, it is. Because for me, these issues started with how hard it was with qualifying in 2013, early 2013, late 2012 in the semifinal round to get there. They honestly continued at the 2014 World Cup. You had the great, exciting day with beating Ghana with the late goal from John Brooks. You should not have lost the Portugal game. The Germany game was a slog where you were getting punished. And then the Belgium game was a slog, but you hung in because Tim Howard stood on his head. You were more defensive than you've ever been in a World Cup since 1990. You were completing fewer passes in the final third. You were creating fewer chances. All the metrics took you back to 1990 and 1994. Outside of the Ghana game and Tim Howard standing on his head and Jermaine Jones scoring a world-class goal against Portugal, there really wasn't much to be excited about. Gold Cup 2015 pushed me over the edge with it because you lose to Jamaica in Atlanta on U.S. soil in a Gold Cup. No. You lose to Panama in the third-place game. No. Qualifying was difficult in the semifinal round where there were hiccups. No. And then it started with catastrophe against Mexico where the team didn't look like they were well-trained at all. And then they went to Costa Rica and had nothing. It goes back to that spirit thing. And the game is not completely defined by spirit, but if you're not playing good soccer but you have a team that is fighting, that can inspire a fan base. That can inspire a team to results that they probably shouldn't get. When you have a team that's not playing great soccer and they're not fighting, it's not very inspiring to want to spend your time caring. And right now, there's not a lot to inspire you to care about the men's national team. And that's a real shame. It has to change. It has to change whether the soccer gets better very quickly or the spirit comes back to where you want to watch this team die for the shirt and you want to watch them play hard and sacrifice. Got to give something. There's got to be some meat on the bone somewhere, and it doesn't feel like there is right now.
And so let's see. Since you were on the youth kick, I'm just going to address this in one sentence. Trains wants to know about the reason for the U20 exit. Tabor overhyped youth. The future is bright! Exclamation point. I'll give you C. Ecuador's that damn good.
I don't get the. I don't know. I know the game that Trains plays and what it is. I understand it, but there's been others echoing this overhyped youth thing. You got to the quarterfinals of the tournament and you lost to the best team in the tournament. I don't think there's really much to be angry about. Are there decisions that Tab Ramos would probably like to have back? Yeah, I think every manager would at any tournament. He stuck by Chris Durkin too long. Durkin had a couple of bad days. I would have liked to have seen Edwin Cerrillo because I think Cerrillo, for what he's done in Dallas, is in a better place than Durkin to do that specific role. I think that would have helped things. He stuck by Keita in the back. I don't know what the issue was with Mark McKenzie. It felt like McKenzie lost his spot, and Keita tried to give it back but didn't. I would have probably preferred to see McKenzie and Richards. Those are the big ones for me. I mean, maybe going to Yanez more than Conrad de la Fuente as the tournament went on. But I don't have mega issues with Tab Ramos and what he did with this team. I think there's some things he could have changed, sure, which you would say about any team in any tournament. I want to see what Tab Ramos does next because I think he needs to move on and manage a team day in and day out. I think it'll make him a better manager. And if he comes back to the national team pool as a youth team manager or as a senior national team manager at some point in his career, he'll be better off for it. I think he needs to go do the day-to-day at a club team. I don't know what team that would be or what it should be, and he's got time, I think, to figure that out. But, yeah, I think that's the next step for him. I think he's done everything he can do at the U20 level. He's taking you to 3 straight quarterfinals. You'd like to get to a semi, but I think he's done a good job as a whole. I think it's nitpicking if you're looking to blame everything on Tab. And I don't know what you're blaming because you made the quarterfinal, and you lost to the best team, and you were in the match. Mm-hmm. Ecuador has been the best team in the tournament from what I've seen. So, the overhyped youth thing, I mean, it's a gimmick. I get it. It's a gimmick to get some attention. I get it. I think it's a reach because I feel like this U20 group is the best one that we've seen. Does that mean they're the best in the world? Does that mean they're the best ever? Of any country ever in the history of soccer? No, that doesn't, and nobody's saying that. Is it the best generation that the U.S. has had? Yeah, I think it is. Now, can they reach their full potential? That's the question. Because being the best U20 generation is nice. Doesn't guarantee you win a World Cup, and it doesn't guarantee you win a U20 World Cup. It just means you have a good generation of teenagers. Are they going to break through? Sergino Dest, I hope that he does. I would love to see Sergino Dest take that next jump. I've liked him since I saw him at the U17 World Cup. I'd like to see Mendez and Yanez show more, give me more, get there. Pomacall. I think Pomacall can be a special player for the U.S. over time. Soto, I think, can be a special player over time. Tim Weah, obviously. We've talked about him at the senior level already. Chris Richards. Yes, I think he can be a special center back over time. Mark McKenzie. I think he can be a good center back for the national team. I think there's a lot of really good players here. Chris Gloucester, want to see more. Now it's the next step. They have done their time at the U20 level outside of De La Fuente. He can be back in the next cycle. They've pretty much all done their time there. Now what do you get out of it? Because Serbia won a U20 World Cup, and Serbia is not knocking down any doors right now at a World Cup or anything else. It doesn't guarantee anything. But I do think this is the best group. I'm not saying they are overhyped youth. I think that's a ridiculous statement. But what they've done here is nice. What they do at the senior level is what's important.
Katie Weaver had a Women's World Cup question, and she says, pardon if I missed the discussion. She was traveling last week. Stars on women's kits. Brazil had 5. Their women have won 0.
Stupid.
Have women's and men's programs always shared stars? Not sure the women's national team would be willing to share with the guys. Smiley-faced emoji.
They don't. Brazil is lame, and I think Brazil is not really thinking much about the women's national team program. And it's a shame because they've had a slew of talented players come through, and they never get supported in the proper way. They should not be wearing a kit with 5 stars. And that's not to diminish the women's national team program. It's the women's national team shirt, and they have not won a World Cup. They should not have stars on it. Just like the U.S. men should not be wearing the U.S. women's shirt with 2 stars on it, with 3 stars on it. They shouldn't be doing that. They should not be wearing the kit of the team that won the World Cups. Flat out. So, no, it's just Brazil being incompetent. There's really nothing else to it, sadly. If the U.S. men came out and wore a 3-star kit because of what the women have done, people would lose their minds. Lose their minds. And they shouldn't do it. It would be an embarrassment. And it should be an embarrassment for the Brazilian women to wear the men's kit with stars on it. But Brazil's federation is incompetent when it comes to the women's side. They don't care. And it's a real shame. And you have players who deserve better.
And apparently I'm using the hashtag Monday Motivation in some of my tweets this morning, which is news to me.
You retweeted Atlanta United's tweet that I retweeted that has Monday Motivation as a hashtag.
Okay.
Are you looking at the things you're retweeting? That could be frightening. You need to be careful with that.
I am looking at the things that I'm retweeting, and a lot of them, since I'm in agreement with you, that's why I retweet them. But so they're using the transitive property.
I could tweet some things and fool you and cause some problems if you're not looking.
No, I do look. But so they use the transitive property in this left-hand column. Okay, all right, I see where this goes. And Friday night, Rito drove on Luis Fernando, beat Dylan Castanera on the short side. Wesley Dacus got caught between ideas, and that was toward the end of the first half. Early second half, 70 seconds in, Elney beats Castanera on the short side in transition. High press, Brandon Vasquez gets a great pass from Okonkwo, made it 2-1, and then the third goal is off a set piece. So, no. All right, what else is on your board?
What was all that? That you just like threw that out of nowhere, and I have no idea what that was referring to.
Okay. Trains, PSA, Red Bulls 2 trounced Atlanta United 2, press too good.
Train's obsession with the press is just whatever. It's a gimmick. Like, know it for what it is. The Red Bulls 2 were better. Yes, they absolutely were. You gave up a couple bad goals, and you gave up bad goals at bad times. You gave up a goal right before the end of the first half, and you gave up a goal right at the beginning of the second half. Romario Williams didn't give you anything up top for Atlanta United 2. Andrew Carlton played well. And you get a goal to get back into it at 2-1, and then you give up a goal at the end, 3-1. It's a pretty deserved result. 2-1 would have been fine. 3-1 is about the level of dominance here that Red Bulls 2 had. And, yeah, their pressing, frantic style, Atlanta had problems dealing with it. Absolutely. That doesn't guarantee that it's the best way to play. And if that's what you want to see, if that's the game you want, that's fine. I'm going to disagree with you. It's just the philosophy that I have about the game. I don't think Red Bulls produces players that are great, well-rounded soccer players. Flat out. Tyler Adams is the exception right now. We'll see if Chris Gloucester can be, although he left at a younger age. We will see. Red Bulls produces players for Red Bulls. And that's fine. That's what they should do. That's the club's job. It's not Red Bull's job to produce players who can play for Atlanta United's system. Red Bulls are producing players for Red Bulls, but they're very limited in what they do. It works for them in a great way. Is it the right way? It's up to you to decide, but if everybody's not playing that way, for them, for their club, it's fine. I don't think it's the best way to play soccer. Flat out, I'll tell you that. I think all it is a lot of pressing, a lot of chaos, and it's basically a system to mask that you don't have good soccer players. Now, they have good soccer players. They have players who can play. At the senior team, Shotkovsky, I think, is an excellent player. Daniel Royer, I think, is an outstanding player. I think they're good soccer players. Kaku, when he's got his head on straight, very good player. But your system allows you to play players who are maybe not as comfortable on the ball, who are not as good on the ball, who are not as technical, and they can have an impact. That's great. That's great for that system. It's also been found out quite a few different times. So I don't know when this became like I'm now anti-Atlanta United and anti having the ball at my feet and anti training players to play soccer and be technical to everybody should just press all the time and not worry about playing with the ball. I really, truly think that if that's what this country became, and it, by the way, no country is that in the way that they train the game at the national team level and across the board. Like nobody, this is their only philosophy in the way they play the game. Because why? Because then, the game is played with the ball, and you have players starting from a young age who can't play with the ball and don't want to play with the ball and are trained not to play with the ball. That's very limiting. That's my issue with it. It's too limiting. It's rigid. It's very rigid in a completely different way than Greg Berhalter's rigid system is. So that's my thoughts on it. And keep tweeting, keep doing your gimmick, and I hope it's working.
We're caught up. What else is on your mind?
Not much. I think we've hit everything. You got the 2 Women's World Cup games today. Open Cup gets going tomorrow. We'll talk a lot tomorrow about talk a lot tomorrow about Atlanta and Charleston. Sorry. Still having flashbacks to yesterday with the United States. We'll talk tomorrow about the U.S. and Thailand as well on the women's side. It's a game that the U.S. should be able to walk through a bit, but it's a game that I feel like they do have to come out and put their stamp on it early and answer some of the questions that people have. Couple first half goals, and then play kind of like what England did yesterday, where England to me, and I said it on the Cup Date show, England to me looked like a team that knows it's going to be there for the whole tournament. It looked like they knew they were good in that match and started to conserve some energy. Now, maybe they took their foot off the gas a little too much and gave Scotland a goal and added a little more chaos than they needed to, but they looked pretty comfortable in what they were doing. The U.S. needs to do that here too. They don't need to get into any weird card situations. They don't need to add any extra chaos or drama in this match. They need to take care of it, get goals early, and coast, because that's what a tournament is. You've got to conserve your energy. You don't want to blow it out here early. They need to get early goals and just control it. And then for Atlanta and Charleston, I mean, there's a lot of questions about lineups, I think, both ways. Charleston's missing players as well to international duty. They played kind of a mixed lineup, I thought, over the weekend. When you're the better team, like you are in the situation with Atlanta, it's the same. I think you need to score first, score early, put the pressure on the home team that this is the biggest game for them this season probably, and you want to make them feel that early. So you want to put pressure on them early. I'm curious to see what the lineup will be. I'm curious to see what the travel group is going to be. You know, do you see a Pity Martinez get back into the team? I don't know if some of the guys who were away and got that extra time away, if they're going to be back for this. Is it going to be down to Romario Williams showing more than he showed for Atlanta United 2 over the weekend? Is it going to be Brandon Vasquez, who showed, I think, a really good 10-15 minutes as a substitute? Yep. Is it going to be down to him to give you that spark? Is it going to be down to Andrew Carlton, who's put together a couple of really good games here for the twos back-to-back? Is he going to get that opportunity to impact this group? Does Darlington Nagbe and Miles Robinson come into this angry because they haven't been part of the Gold Cup roster? Do they come in with a chip on their shoulder? A lot of storylines going into tomorrow. We'll get you set for all that tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., for a Tuesday Thoughts Match Day edition, which is kind of a weird one, but we'll do our best with it. Couple Match Day edition with the women at 3 o'clock, Atlanta United at 7:30. And later today, probably in the 6 o'clock hour, we will have the latest World Cup update on the two games from the Women's World Cup today. Japan and Argentina at noon, Canada, Cameroon at 3 o'clock, and we'll also start to look ahead to the United States opening the tournament on Tuesday.
So we got stuff, is what you're saying.
We've got stuff. And if you are thinking about Prize Picks, if you are thinking about, well, maybe I want to get into this, a little birdie told me yesterday that they will be adding the Women's World Cup to Prize Picks. So keep on the lookout for that. I know I am. You can go in if you haven't already, and some of you have, and it's. I hope you're enjoying it. But if you haven't already, you go in, you use the code SDH when you sign up, you make your initial deposit. 25% of that's going to be matched, so you're going to get more money than you put in, and you're going to get a free 2-pick $25 play, free roll to see what you get out of it. They're doing some special stuff as well. I think they're going to do some special stuff around the time they introduce the Women's World Cup on the platform. So follow them on social media at Prize Picks. Turn the notifications on because they give you some deals. There could be some around the NBA Finals tonight because they do a lot with those big games. So you can mix and match sports. You can do all kinds of different things. But if you use the code SDH, you're going to get some free cash to work with. We try to help. Before we
go, you think Prize Picks would do something on the Justin Bieber-Tom Cruise fight?
No, I don't think they would touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
Because for me, humanity would win if the two of them would fight.
Why do you hate Justin Bieber and Tom Cruise so much? What did they do to you?
Well, it's Justin Bieber. It's like, dude, you're not that important.
He's a pop star. Big deal.
Yeah, good for you.
Why you got to be a hater, John?
He's challenging him to a UFC fight?
I mean, it'd be fun to watch. I don't know what kind of moves Bieber has in the cage.
For me, humanity would win.
Tom Cruise is kind of wily. I think he might be sneaky good.
Oh, Tom Cruise would fight dirty.
I don't know if he fight dirty. I think Tom Cruise is
Jack Reacher and Mission
movie,
Impossible
John.
guy.
It's not real. It's not real. Didn't happen. No, I think what you get out of that is that Tom Cruise is a guy who does his own stunts. So if this was to happen, and it won't, because
take a shot.
It's not stupid. No, it's not about taking a shot. I think Tom Cruise would go into ridiculous level of training to be competent as a fighter in a cage, and I don't think Bieber would prepare for the fight in that way. I think Bieber would think he could just go in and throw hands, and Tom Cruise might put him in a triangle choke in 30 seconds. It's some crazy, ridiculous armbar that Bieber has to tap out. Like, I think Tom Cruise would dominate Justin Bieber in a cage because I think Tom Cruise is insane and relentless and would put in every bit of training that it would require, and he would learn some chokehold that would leave Bieber crying like a little child.
Yes, I'm for this. You think that HBO could do a 24/7 on it?
No, I don't need to see that. I don't want to watch Tom Cruise like training. I just would think that he would do it. I mean, I'm not that invested in it, but yeah, I think he would prepare and have some like crazy jiu-jitsu expert like give him 5 different moves, and he would come in and just ridiculously dominate Justin Bieber in a fight. Why is Bieber threatening Tom Cruise with a fight anyway? Like, is there a reason? Did he just pick him out of the lineup and say, I want to fight Tom Cruise?
Yeah, and apparently fans are still trying to figure out why you're Justin Bieber. I want to challenge Tom Cruise to fight in the octagon. Tom, if you don't take this fight, you're, Y-O-U-R, scared, and you will never live it down. Who is willing to put on the fight? ? At Dana White ?
I mean, like,
see, this is me rooting for Tom Cruise now.
Yeah, it takes a lot to make Tom Cruise the babyface in this one, but for some reason, Justin Bieber wants to fight Tom Cruise. Like, I don't even know why. Like, I don't get it.
I'm reading the straight tweet. There's nothing else to it.
No, I know. There's like, I can't even think of any time that they would have interacted.
What did Tom Cruise do to you? Justin Bieber?
I don't know. It's weird. But, yeah, I think that would end badly for Bieber if that actually happens. That would end very badly because there would be just some crazy training going on by Cruise, and he would choke him out. Choke him out or armbar him. He'd do something like that. I mean, it wouldn't be like a slugfest if it's
no,
a UFC fight.
It wouldn't be like
the
kick from the weekend.
I didn't see it. I saw... was it Triple G with the left hook that just decimated? I can't remember who he was fighting, but just caught him with a left hook, and the guy just crumpled. Now, it wouldn't be that, and that's again, it shows Bieber's stupidity. If he wanted to, get him into a boxing match, okay, then maybe Bieber can just go for haymakers. But you get him into something where Tom Cruise can train and actually learn some holds.
Okay. Steve Rolls was the Triple G.
Okay. Well, yeah, he doesn't want to see Triple G again.
Yeah. Yeah. Just straight left by Triple G on Steve Rolls, knocked him out back over the weekend. Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Justin Bieber wants to fight Tom Cruise. We'll see if Tom Cruise has a response. That'll be highly entertaining.
2 sounds. Me hitting you, you hitting the floor.
No, it wouldn't be that. There would not be that. It would be like you try to throw a punch and then getting grabbed and then getting into an arm bar where your arm would be ripped out of its socket. It's not going to be that. It's going to be methodical. It's not going to be a cliche. It's going to be Tom Cruise training because he's legitimately insane and obsessive, and he's going to learn some stuff that Justin Bieber's not going to have any clue what's happening. Bieber's going to have his arm ripped out of its socket before he even knows what's going on.
And humanity wins.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, If it's free, I'd watch it. I'm not paying any money for it.
No. No.
I don't know if you get
There'll be none of
promos and
that.
stuff. Like I might go to a bar to watch it. If you get some promos and like people talking all reckless, crazy stuff about it, then yeah, I might be interested enough to go watch it somewhere. But I'm not spending like money on pay-per-view for it. No.
Val Kilmer cutting a promo.
I mean, you got to have an
On behalf
undercard
of
if you're going to do that. So you've got to have other random celebrities threatening other random celebrities to have the undercard. So we'll see where that could go. But yeah, I would be very willing to bet that there is no response and this just fades away.
Oh, disappointment.
Man, you have a lot of anger towards Justin Bieber for some reason.
He's not talented.
I disagree with that. That's not fair. You don't like his music.
Self-importance.
Yeah, no, that's he's obnoxious. I don't disagree with that, but that doesn't mean he's not talented. I mean, obviously his music has gotten some people's attention, so I'm not going to be the one to say that he's not talented because it's not my cup of tea. But yeah, he's kind of a punk.
Yes. I would agree.
I think that's
he is
fair.
a punk. Straight up punk. Not impressed.
All
My
right,
money's
we've
on
talked
Tom
way
Cruise.
too much about Justin Bieber now, and I blame
Well,
you.
we were in stoppage time.
Yeah, I still blame you. That was a lot of Justin Bieber conversation.
But so Tuesday thoughts tomorrow at 9, and it's a match day Tuesday thoughtsian kind of thing.
Yes, it's all of the things, and it starts at 9 o'clock. You can listen on the app. You can listen on soccerdownhere.net. You can listen on Spreaker. Later tonight, we'll have an update, the World Cup date edition. It'll be somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes, although I say that and it'll probably end up 30 because that's what happens.
Yeah.
We all start talking. It's like, no, we're only going to do 10 minutes this time, and it just keeps going because there's so much to talk about with this tournament. Hopefully we don't have any crazy handball situations today, but we'll get you
Handling.
recapped on Japan and Argentina. And it's a handball. IFAB said it's okay. Canada and Cameroon at 3, Japan, Argentina at noon. We'll recap those for you. We'll talk about any storylines coming out of it, and we'll look ahead to tomorrow with the U.S. making their debut in the tournament. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for all the great tweets. Thanks for all the great conversation. Even you, Trains, thanks for the conversation, as always. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha handball, y'all.